In the field of occupational therapy, or OT, social participation and community integration are recognized as essential and foundational components to the human experience. For children, participation in social experiences is of particular importance. Current literature demonstrates the significant impact of social experiences on development, well-being, quality of life, and identity in children. However, research shows that children with disabilities are consistently restricted in access to and participation in social experiences that are afforded to age-level peers, often resulting from social stigmas and inaccessible environments that aren't able to meet the needs of the population. For my Capstone project and applied leadership experience as a doctoral student of OT, my goal was to expand community programming for populations of children with disabilities. I partnered with Easter Seals Crossroads, a nonprofit organization that serves individuals with disabilities across the lifespan. Though Easter Seals has provided summer camp programming for children with disabilities for many years, the organization had a desire to expand their programs to include more populations of kids that were still unable to attend their camps due to communication, physical, medical, and behavioral needs. In order to address this gap, we worked together to create Camp Quest. Administrators within Easter Seals assessed community needs of the greater Indianapolis area, which is where we're located, and identified 3 major groups without access to any summer camp programming nearby. Within Camp Quest, we provided 3 2-week-long sessions, with each session targeting one of these identified populations. So our first group was our mode session. This was for children with complex medical and behavioral needs beyond what can be supported at our other available Easter Seals camps. Our second group was our DHH session for deaf and hard of hearing children. And our last session was our Skills on Wheels session, which was for children that used manual or power wheelchairs. In order to develop each session of camp, I completed extensive literature reviews on the population, the needs, and the access barriers to current available programs. I collaborated with a multitude of organizational members, topic experts, and other students to develop staff training and camp programming. Before camp, I developed and administered both virtual and hands-on training resources for camp counselor staff. These trainings were population-specific to ensure that everyone was competent and able to support the populations appropriately. I then coordinated the counselors, clinicians, volunteers, students, interpreters, and community experiences throughout the administration of our total 6 weeks of camp programming. Additionally, for the Skills on Wheels session, I also created daily educational handouts and resources for parents to promote learning and carryover of the skills that we touched on in camp. In order to measure the impact of our program, I developed parent surveys based on keywords for my literature review and needs assessment. These surveys consisted of Likert scale style questions with content covering topics like identity, belonging, quality of life, social participation, community integration, and environment. We had 8 families return these surveys, all reporting overwhelmingly positive feedback from their camp experience. One parent wrote, "This camp has been incredible for my camper. His sense of ownership over a very common experience for most kids has been so amazing to watch." Another parent said, "Thank you so much for being flexible and accommodating my camper's special needs. It has been refreshing after other lacking situations." So overall, this feedback was very consistent with what we set out to do, right? To provide a space that's inclusive, that's appropriate, and that is easy for these campers to come to camp and have a great time. Overall, we found our programming to be meaningful and engaging to campers and families, many of which, as we've discussed, reported an appropriate and accessible environment that met their needs and facilitated that social and community experience that we had hoped for. I was able to provide Easter Seals with data on how programming expansion might be possible for their resources, their staff, and their budgets. Though each session of camp featured a very different population, I found myself really appreciating my OT skills throughout the transition to each new group of kids. The great importance of client-centeredness, task analysis and adaptation, environmental modification, and advocacy within the OT field really equipped me to adapt each session of programming to the needs of each population. The scope and skills of OT uniquely prepare us to recognize and adapt to the needs of different communities, which makes our field vital in addressing this gap in programming and accessibility. Following the development and administration of Camp Quest, my site mentor and I found our program to be successful in expanding community summer camp programming to wider populations of children with disabilities at Easter Seals Crossroads. This addresses the gap in services for children with disabilities through providing access to social experiences in an appropriate, safe, and supportive environment that can be adapted to meet the needs of each target population. Thank you so much for watching, and please feel free to reach out if you have further questions about my project.